Hello, one and all, and welcome back, yes, back to the Great Unknown Audio Show with me, your illustrious host and most appropriate face for radio, Maxim Jennings, and we are on day 2 of the Western Australian 3-week extravaganza, currently trailing from Point Anne in Fitzgerald National Park to Point Charles, not Campbell, and we are currently about halfway through. We're making our return journey now. I was going to start this episode a bit earlier, but had a few navigational issues as the trail itself is not entirely clear, and there was a few anxieties I had. As I mentioned in the previous episode, I had to purchase my Western Australian Parks Pass, but stupidly forgot to get it printed, and that was one of the mandatory requirements to then put it on the car, but that didn't happen. And so on the first hour and a half of my walk, which is a stunning beach walk for about 9 kilometres along the Point Anne beach trail, I came across the rangers there, and I asked them, 2 lovely gentlemen, who I'll get to a bit later, I just asked them, look, I have my pass online, but I haven't got it printed on the car. And it was a slightly older gentleman, probably coming to the twilight of his ranger career. Well, don't worry about that today, mate. We're fucking out here. You don't need to worry about that. We're not going to be booking you today. So I'm like, oh, get in my mind, and we're all good. We're all clear. So I made my way down the beach, which was beautiful. Lovely white sand beaches with pearlescent blue waves coming from what looks like the middle of nowhere of South Australia. And then I start going through the bushwalk part and become slightly agitated and annoyed by the buzz and the flipping around of flies, my arch nemesis. I think there is no other animal in the world I dislike as much as flies, because they have no real they're all over me right now, which is why I've got a certain grit amongst my teeth. They have no sort of purpose in the food chain. All they do is lay eggs, which turn into maggots, which are disgusting. Which I guess it has some use as they break down dead bodies and all that, but and then they just fly around humans and just buzz in their ears, and they're stupid enough, even though they're so small, to go into and buzz around the biggest living thing they can find, but they're smart enough that when I try and slap one, which is on my cheek, it flies away and I slap myself. How does that work? It's just 2 negatives and only positives for flies, even though I think they only live for a certain amount of days, which I guess that gives them their comeuppance. But I'm constantly wafting my hands along this trail, which has made it one of my least enjoyable walks so far around Australia. But then I once again, when I made it to my halfway point, the Fitzgerald Lookout, which is about 13 kilometres away from where I started, I came across the 2 rangers again, which was great, and they were sat down having their lunch, and we had a nice little conversation. Then I saw that they were completely smothered by flies, unfazed, and really with little care about them. So I think I need to take a leaf out of their book, however difficult it may be, not to waft and get annoyed and speak to something that can't hear me and tell it how much I want to absolutely obliterate it. But nonetheless, they told me quite a lot, to be fair. They'd oh my God, go away. So there was a gentleman who was probably in his late 30s, and then one who was, like I said, in the twilight of his career, both of which had rangered a lot. I don't know whether that's the right expression, but the older guy had been in northwest Australia, with the average temperature in the summer was 39 degrees across 3 months. 3 months of 39 degrees, can you imagine that? And it got as high as 48 only a few years ago. So that was just a really interesting fact. Having to do ranger work in that kind of environment sounds absolutely terrible. And then we got talking a bit about the Aboriginal peoples, because they explained to me that every national park in Australia now is in collaboration with the Aboriginals, and every park has Aboriginal rangers as well as government employed rangers, which they were talking about how great that was, because the Aboriginals still have a lot more, they have more rights over this land than the colonisers, shall I call us. Once again, apologies to the Aboriginals for historical colonisations of people from my country. And they still have rights to hunt in every single national park with guns. So they have to be half a kilometre away from a campsite, but they can still hunt and shoot down wildlife as a means of getting food to eat and or skins to keep warm and whatnot. And they can still camp and drive their vehicles in national parks, where in some places are closed off to other members of the public, and so they can perform their historical dances, their traditional rituals, all in national park areas, and give themselves as much isolation as they need from the rest of the world, which is I find pretty cool. Although I'd spoken before about the fact that they don't get as much representation in the Australian government as they should be getting after losing the referendum, there's still, in certain organisations and collaborations, plenty of representation for Aboriginal people, which is good. And I talked to one of the rangers who had also done the Cradle Mountain Summit in Tasmania, and said how great it was. But he did the Overlands Walk, where you go over the top of Cradle Mountain and then do another 20 kilometres on the side. But he said he did that in the 1980s, so a bit of a time difference there, which was interesting. So I'll take you back to last night, as I haven't done that already. Usually I start with that, but the sleep. How was the sleep? Well, it was better than last time for sure. I ended up watching The Black Swan with Natalie Portman, settling down at a late old 7:30 in the evening, probably the earliest I've ever gone to bed. My setup managed to work pretty well. I had chairs instead of pegs on each of my peg holes, because the tent was on this sandy rock and the pegs weren't going down. I didn't have a mallet, so for the future it might be a worry, but we managed to adapt and think on our feet, which is always important. So I sat down, watched the Black Swan after eating my tremendous dinner, and was aiming to get up at 6:10 in the morning. That turned out to be more of a 7 o'clock wake up time, and it was throughout the night. There were constant showers of rain, and I was under a roof, thankfully. Otherwise, I think the Kmart tent would have been really tested. But it was okay. It was a really nice background noise to go to sleep in. I would say I think I got about 5 or 6 hours, which in camping terms is pretty good, because usually when I'm in a tent, if I'm sleeping well, it's because I've had a large consumption of alcohol prior to trying to get to sleep. So yeah, we're working on it. It's getting better. The sleeping bag, unfortunately, said it was 6 feet long, but only went up to the bottom of my neck. So that was a bit of a struggle. I had to unzip it and then use it as a bit of a blanket. I've still got the liner that I used in the last camping trip, so but I didn't bring it in the tent, stupidly, so I'm gonna bring it in for this one. It got to about 10 degrees, so not too cold, like I wasn't too bad with just a sleeping blanket. which was good. I woke up about 7, I said. Refrained against having a shower just because I knew I was going to get pretty sweaty today and I'm going to save it for later. I was a bit apprehensive about doing this walk just in terms of time, as on the website it told you give yourself 9 to 10 hours. And I was like, bloody hell, it's only 25 kilometres, like 9 to 10 hours? And then I started walking, and I was walking on the beach. And I don't know about you folks, I think I look really unattractive when I walk on the beach because the steps are uneven and you have to kind of dig your legs up every time you walk, and you almost look like you're plodding along, like you're carrying a lot of water in your wellies. So that I always find walking on sand pretty tough. I know that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, infamous American movie star and athlete, always runs on sand for 5 miles every morning at 6 o'clock in the morning. Apparently it's part of his workout routine on a daily basis. So maybe I should start doing that to get stronger and more used to walking on sand. But that walk lasts for about 9 kilometres on the sand, so it's not easy, and maybe that's why they say you to allocate yourself plenty of time. I just about beat the tide, which was coming in thick and fast, which was good, as I arrived at about 10 o'clock at Point Anne this morning, following a really disgusting drive. So that kind of adds to my dislike towards this trail, as every road for about 30 kilometres to inside the national park is gravelled, should I say, meaning that they've got all those stupid bumps on the road. So you're constantly hearing, and it's difficult to tell whether the faster you drive, the worse it will be for the car, but the less you'll hear the noise. Or the slower you drive, the louder the noise is, the longer the time it takes, and I don't know whether it's any better for the car, just because you're going over bumps at a slower speed. Most people probably think, yeah, but the noise is just so infuriating, and it takes so long, because it's not like it's 2 kilometres, it's 30 kilometres, so it takes about 45 minutes, and I've got that to look forward to when I depart here. But, yeah, I wouldn't recommend this trail at this time of year. The rangers were saying that they're surprised that the whales weren't out, and that was really the main reason why I'd come, on a glimmer of hope that I might see some whales today at the lookout. And they were pretty annoyed that they weren't here. Apparently they arrived pretty late last year and didn't stick around for too long, because even the ranger said that the vegetation and the flowers are all shit. That was his words, not mine. So really he's putting my walk into perspective for the load of you if he's calling it shit and he has to walk around it every single day. So the beach was good, the flies are bloody annoying, the drive was shocking, and we've got 3.5 to 4 hours to our next spot, Hyden, tonight, and I'll give you a full review of the accommodation in the morning. We're not going to be arriving in the light, unfortunately, so that's going to add a bit of extra time onto our trip as well. But yeah, sometimes walking can be one of the best things in the world. Like I explained my Crater Mountain trek. I mean, this place is nice, the sea is nice, but I've seen better now, and my expectations for Western Australia are pretty high. So, are we going to see better? Let's hope so. I'll keep you posted. We've got Wave Rock tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that. And hopefully you've enjoyed listening to me rant, moan and complain for 15 minutes. Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.